It's time for Screen Junkies Movie Fights.
What in the world? Welcome to Movie Fights, hashtag Movie Fights Live. We're doing it and doing it and doing it right. I want to give a shout out to hashtag Owl Nation. Hoot, hoot. Hello, Owl Nation. And we've got some exciting competitors in the house, some of the best, and there's some rivalries, maybe some grudges are going to be settled. Maybe new grudges will emerge. Let's meet our combatants. First off, this is not a title defense, but he is the reigning Movie Fights champion, also the Schmodown singles champion. He is Dan the Man Murrell. Dan, what's going on, brother?
I feel weird, Hal. Billy produced me out of my seat. I'm used to sitting over there.
It's already starting.
I'm used to sitting over there.
The tinfoil hat conspiracies are already starting.
I think Jack Shipley can produce some sort of graphic that will tell you that seat is the most successful seat. So Billy,
that's because I always sit there.
Yeah.
Dan,
yeah. There you go.
I'm trying to give you a more miraculous win today in the underdog seat. You're welcome.
Billy is playing Puppet Master, and he made the seating chart. Dan, good luck in that new seat.
It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to this.
You know, you need handicaps in this because you're too damn good at movie fights,
I just like
Dan.
fighting just to fight, just to play the game.
You are.
Belts, nothing.
You are a movie fights purist. Yeah. This man, he is no stranger to movie fighting, and he's no stranger to the Schmodown. You know him as one of the titular schmoes, collider all over the place. Welcome back to the show, Mr. KRISTIAN Harloff.
Happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. It was funny because I was just saying this morning on my cute show that I do, Collider Live.
Yes.
I was on there this morning and I had said about, a month ago, I wanted to come back to movie fights. I had missed it. I hadn't done it in a while. And I have nothing but respect for, obviously, for not only the movie fights champion, the Schmodown champion, that eventually I'd love to test my hat against him as the champion.
Yeah.
If I can earn it, if I can get there. Ooh. So I'm going to take those fights and wait to see what happens. So I get today, waiting for Billy to say, this is who you're playing. You're playing me and Dan. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I won now. You guys just won. Nice to see you, Harloff. Catch you on the road.
But if you win today, that's a great resume builder for a title shot.
Yeah, well, you're in the bad seat, so maybe I'll get lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pulling a tough draw on your first one back.
I know.
Also, I just you haven't really. I mean, there's a lot of cool, exciting stuff going down with the Schmodown all the time, all the different incarnations and iterations. But there's a big event coming up. Please.
Yeah, well, we've been going on the road a lot. We sold out in New York in 2 days, obviously, when Dan won the belt back, and we are going to be we're going to Chicago April 13th. Yeah. 800 people, and the SchmodownLive.com. You'll get tickets. But yes, March 23rd at the Globe Theater, downtown Los Angeles. The free-for-all, which is our version of the Royal Rumble. It's about 40 competitors all going head-to-head to head-to-head. The last person standing gets a shot at any title that they want. Wow. You never know who's coming in. There are tickets available left. You can get the SchmodownLive.com. About between 400 to 500 people will be there, and it's just going to be, it's a crazy time. It's a lot of fun.
Amazing. Yeah, I've been to one of those. I've competed in those.
Yeah.
It is insane, and it's always cool when you get a table full of heavy hitters, and then they all get knocked out or something like that. Yeah, crazy stuff happens.
Mark Andreyko knocked out four of the best Schmodown players around. It was it was a great moment.
Good times. KRISTIAN, awesome to have you back, brother.
Happy to be back. Thank
you. This man's doing double duty. He does the producing.
Apparently not well.
Yeah, according to Harloff. Yeah.
I thought I was doing you guys a favor by taking the kind of bouncy sinking seat, but I guess. By the way, Joe Starr booked this episode, and I put things in order of who gets their answers in first. So you got yours in first. Okay. You get first seat.
Oh, all right.
I'm an amazing producer. Go ahead.
Great. Makes sense to somebody. Billy. Billy Patterson, thank you for being here, ready to throw down. Good to have you across the table. And deciding these fights will be myself. And in place of the Dan Cam, we have the Riding Dirty.
We were good. The chat wanted us to do Rad Tool, but
I think that's a good. I like Riding Dirty.
Riding Dirty.
Yeah, right.
Ryan, what's going on? Good to see you.
Hey, great to be here. In fact, I'm gonna be fact checking, and it's fact that I'm having a good time. Did that come off organically? That's what I was hoping.
Oh, yeah, it came off
Thank you.
smooth.
I warned ahead of time.
Smooth as a dolphin.
Thank you so much.
You
I
can see
thought
Ryan at
so.
open mics all across LA.
You can see me outside of restaurants bothering people as they walk away.
Thank
Please come
you.
see the show.
Sean
Please come
Maroney.
Ryan, thanks for holding it down, the fact check chair.
Yeah.
And we have our social media ambassador, Danielle Radford.
Hello! Yes, I am the social media ambassador. So, as all of you know, we do have polls that go up on the YouTube. Those polls are used as tiebreakers or other breakers in case it just seems like the judges aren't able to make up their mind. The way that poll works is that once the initial arguments have been presented, the poll answers will go up. You can vote all the way up until I start giving my decision, and then it's done. Sorry, guys. That is when the poll, they'll still be open, but it no longer counts. But I still love you. Also, I will be on the hashtag Movie Fights Live on Twitter, and you guys always have really good other answers, alternate takes, the dankest of dank memes. And so go ahead and get active in that, because if I like what I see, I might shout you out on the show.
Heck yeah. Yeah, maybe a corgi or even a shark or an owl. So once again, the first player to 4 points wins. The top 2 players after the first 3 rounds will move on to the speed round. And in the speed round, it's anybody's game. You can be down 3-0 and make a furious comeback. Fellas, what do you say we start this dog and pony show?
Let's do this.
JTE, please drop that sick-ass package.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's main event time.
Thank you, Thor. All right, so first question of today's movie fights. Here it is. So, we assume that we've all seen Captain Marvel, yeah? I hope so. Otherwise, this question's gonna be a little tough for you. So it's time to settle this. Who is the most powerful character in the MCU? Who's the most powerful character in the MCU? And we'll start with player number 1, Dan.
Very tough decision, but I went with the victor of the last Avengers movie, the one that we just got a new trailer for today, Endgame. We are in the Endgame because of one person, and that person is Thanos. Thanos is the most powerful person, the most powerful character in the MCU. Infinity Gauntlet. First of all, let's talk with the Infinity Gauntlet. Obviously, untold power. Power over time, power over reality, power over just about everything in the universe. But not just the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos is a powerful person. He is a ruler. He has ruled over untold numbers of space. He's ruled over armies. He has commanded literally tens, hundreds, millions of people under his rule. And he's got power over the universe, really, because the entire universe in the MCU, from the Avengers through Guardians, through Infinity War, and through Endgame, the universe has ultimately been on the run from one person, and that person is Thanos. Power is not just might and strength. Power is influence, power is reach, and Thanos has more power than any other person in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
All right, Dan coming in with the Mad Titan, Thanos. Christian, who do you got?
Well, I mean, I was going to take Thanos. Thanos was the one I thought at first, but then I said the problem with Thanos is that, yeah, you can talk about the gauntlet, but the problem is that it's toast now. All the stones are gone, so he's not really you can't use those anymore. Plus, the fact his drive is kind of gone. He's sitting on a farm, he's chilling out, he's relaxing. He doesn't have that drive, and he doesn't have the drive that he had to really dominate the universe. Now, Captain Marvel, on the other hand, is to me. And by the way, anyone who hasn't seen Captain Marvel should maybe pause this response away, because there has to be spoilers for my argument.
Yep.
So Captain Marvel is the first phone call that Nick Fury makes when he's about to he's disappearing. So you're going to call the person you think is going to be able to save the universe, especially when you're the guy that was running S.H.I.E.L.D. You call Captain Marvel. We can see why. She has part of an Infinity Stone that is lodged inside of her body. She doesn't need a glove to do it. There were things that she did, and she's tapped into her powers now. Now, it was the first half of the movie. She's still learning. She's Neo. Now she's Neo. She knows how to use that Matrix. She knows how to use every bit of her ability. She has shown that, I don't know, I'm watching that movie, and I said, how do you stop her? She has all the powers she's as strong as Hulk. She's as fast as anyone inside of any of the Avengers. She could beat all the Avengers by herself at this point. And without that gauntlet, I don't see how Thanos can stand next to her, even with an army. No one even put up a sweat against her. I mean, she didn't put up a sweat against anybody fighting at the end of that film.
Thank you, Christian. Billy.
So I'm going with the self-proclaimed strongest Avenger. I'm going with the God of Thunder himself.
Was that an
Thor.
Australian accent, by the way?
That was pretty good. I know, it was spot on. I'm freaking you out over here.
Okay.
But I'm going with Thor because Thor, first of all, Titans in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're not really gods. Now, Thanos, I'll give you, he's a strong, powerful guy, maybe the Brock Lesnar of space, but he is not he is not a god like my man Thor. My man Thor, much like Captain Marvel, was so powerful that his dad tried to channel his energy, his power through his hammer, and then he found out if you just unleash the beast, baby, you got a stew going. And on top of that, Thanos has the entire gauntlet. He's cranked that thing up to 11, and Thor, without even thinking about it, just throws his axe down. Thor's weapon is more powerful than all of Thanos' might combined. It's Thor 100%.
All right, let's see this triple team battle royale match happen. Go
First
at
of
it,
all,
guys.
I want to say about Captain Marvel, I think purely there's just not enough game tape of Captain Marvel. We can't conclude that she's the most powerful because we've only seen her in one situation. And statistically, math speaking, she only has one power of the 6 powers. So just by math, I would give it to Thanos over that. At least he's got the power of 6. She's just got 1.
He doesn't have the power of 6 anymore. That's burnt out once he dissolved.
We don't know that.
We
don't
know that.
We don't know that.
We do know that. We
don't know that it doesn't work anymore.
We saw that it was complete. First of all, it's not at the full capacity, and you're not going to be able to beat her if you're not.
That's your speculation. We don't know that it
Well,
doesn't work.
my speculation's correct. Now, when you have, as far as when you looked at it, they did a close-up shot on it. The fact that it was dissolving, smoke was coming out. Plus, the fact he thought his game was over. He was sitting back, relaxing. His whole point was to wipe everybody out. He did that. He's done. His like I said in the beginning, his drive, it's over. It's not there anymore. He's not as hungry as he was. But Thor is a good argument. But the problem with Thor is that we've shown before that he's kind of weak-minded. He absolutely can be thrown off of his game from emotion. Captain Marvel has shown that the exact opposite. Captain Marvel has shown that she can endure any personal tragedy, whatever it might be. We don't need enough game tape. We had enough because at the very end of that movie, you had enough from one movie. Who is going to be able to beat her? At the end of Thor, when you saw Thor doing all of his powers, whatever it is, like, okay, there's more movies to show what this guy's capable of. She showed maximum to the fact, like I said again, Captain Nick Fury needed to call her, and they needed to show how are we going to do this? Oh, we need Captain Marvel. We know that Captain Marvel is essential to this movie. So why is she there? She's a plot point. At the end of the trailer, you show her because this is the person that's going to save the universe.
The question isn't who's the best strategist. Do I think that Thor should have gone for that? Of course. But that doesn't change the fact that Thor can wield something that, A, no one else can, because he says the power alone would kill you. He can take on the blast of a full star. He is a god, and he's the only thing in that entire movie that actually repels Thanos. Avengers are going down left and right. All you'd have to do is give Captain Marvel one good Power Stone click and she's down for the count. Thor's weapon.
How do you know that?
Because he took out every other Avenger. Thor was the only one that went toe-to-toe and actually repelled the might of all the Infinity Stones.
But he didn't. He didn't defeat Thanos. He wounded Thanos, and ultimately it did not stop Thanos from achieving his ultimate goal.
That has nothing to do with power, though.
Well, sure it does. They faced off, and Thanos came out on top. He won.
The question isn't who had the best strategy for taking down the other character. The question is who's the most powerful. Thor, 100%
Even
is
if
the
it
most
was
powerful.
strategy, Thanos wins again because Thor did not come out on top in Infinity War.
But
Thanos came out on top in Infinity War.
Strategy is part of power. I agree with you.
Sure, but
100%
okay, let's
disagree.
talk strategy. Thanos had a strategy to get his ultimate goal done, and ultimately he accomplished it.
Yes.
And some people would say like, oh, well, he didn't strategize very well because Loki failed, and and then Ronan failed. Well, he exacted revenge on those who failed him, and then said, okay, if the non-direct approach isn't going to work, then as he said in the movies, I'm going to do this myself. And he did. But the other thing that I want to bring up with Thanos as well is everyone's talking about Captain Marvel's powers and Thor's weapon, and the Infinity Gauntlet is a weapon. That is one aspect of power. But there's also another reason why Thanos succeeded and the Avengers failed. It's the quote that he says in Infinity War: the hardest choices require the strongest wills. At every single turn, we have seen all of the Avengers fall prey to a fatal flaw. It's what allowed Thanos to get out of a pretty sticky jam that he was in, which is that Star-Lord is a very emotional person, and in the heat of the moment, he gave over to that emotion. Captain America gave over to the fact that we don't trade lives. Was that a very upstanding thing to do? Yes. Was that the best strategic decision? No, and that's why Thanos won. Not only has Thanos exerted control over everyone else in the galaxy, everyone else in the universe, he's the only person that has been able to exert that same control over himself, over his own weaknesses, over his own flaws. The Infinity Gauntlet didn't get Thanos the Soul Stone. His ability to make the hard choices, and it's a terrible choice, and it results in half of the life and the universe disappearing. He made the hard choice. He defeated even those things inside himself that have defeated all of the Avengers at some point and their villains. Pride, vanity, ego, love, whatever it is. Thanos is the character that was able to do that, and that's not something that either one of these two can say.
The problem that Thanos, that we're not talking about here too, that even though, yes, he was a master strategist, he was the being that was able to get all the stones and harness those. But what we're not talking about is that he was beaten. But stupidity by Star-Lord, absolute stupidity is what happened there, because he was done. It was over, and you could see that a regular human being, Doctor Strange, who's got magical abilities, obviously, but it took a bunch of them to do it. But he was defeated. He was absolutely.
Well, if he'd been defeated, then he would have lost.
Well, the other thing too is you talk about master strategist. If he was a master strategist, he wouldn't have given Loki an Infinity Stone to go get another Infinity Stone, and then end up with 0 Infinity Stones. So if you're talking about what a great leader he is, it's like, dude, you keep talking about like, I'm going to do this myself, but then I'm going to have my other guys go get the other Infinity Stones.
What I don't hear though is why. But what I don't hear is why Captain Marvel isn't. I hear a lot of things about Loki because Captain Marvel to me is the one, once again, because you look at what she did from a military background, or what she was able to do.
But all you saw her do was destroy one ship, which both of our characters have destroyed multiple ships, multiple things.
I've seen people box for one time and knowing that they're going to be champions from the performance of what they were able to do in the ring that night.
Well, yeah, but Mike Tyson didn't win a hypothetical heavyweight championship. He had to at some point get in the ring and fight, and Captain Marvel has not yet done that against the kind of competition. We've seen the game tape on Thor.
But you knew Mike Tyson was going to be able to hang with those people, and you know that Captain Marvel is going to be able to hang. I mean, everybody on this table knows Captain Marvel is going to be able to hang.
But is she the most powerful?
She went up against a handful of Kree soldiers, and she destroyed one ship. At least my guy's been through thousands of years. Yeah, just like Thor mowed down thousands of Hela's troops at the end of Thor Ragnarok.
But is it not? But nobody was calling Thor when there was, like, they were in their standalone movies, and no one's calling Thor. Well, they're in this movie, this big movie, the end of the movie. Who do they call? They're calling Captain Marvel for a reason. They could have called anybody else, but they're calling her because they know that she is the answer. She is the one that can do it. You know Nick Fury by the end of it.
Captain Marvel because Nick Fury doesn't know who else is gone, and there's literally one thing he can do, which is to call Captain Marvel.
He knows.
He has a direct pager to one person. He doesn't have the Thor pager that he could click.
He's been in movies with these people for the last whatever amount of years it is. He's got direct contact to all of them. He called Captain Marvel because he saw what Captain Marvel could do. He saw the amount of power that she had because she did take down that ship. She didn't take that ship by like just.
No, he called her because she's the last resort. If she was so powerful, he would have called her when New York was happening and ended that in 3 seconds. Instead, he saw that he had a Thor instead, and that was just fine because Thor's more powerful.
You didn't. It was that she's and I don't know if we changed cursing on this show.
No, we try to stay fairly clean.
Okay, the OS moment, if you will. That is what Thanos was, and because. Like I said, it was between him and Captain Marvel. Those were the two. But then I just thought about him sitting on that farm with his arms folded. He's retired. He's living in Hawaii right now. He thinks it's over. He's
living in Hawaii right now because he achieved the one task that everyone in this, not only does everyone say in the universe say that this wasn't possible, it was the most opposed person in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Dan, go ahead and roll this into your final thought.
Thanos faced down every single Avenger, individually and collectively as a group, and still won. He took the hardest shot that Thor had and still survived. He took the hardest shot that every single Avenger had and still survived. That's not just strength, that's not just the Infinity Gauntlet. If we're talking power, he has the ultimate weapon. He can wield the ultimate weapon. We don't know what the power of that is yet. We don't know how much power that still resides in him. But beyond that, he is the man in the cinematic universe, or the Titan, who wiped out half of the universe's life That is power. That is real power. He affected the biggest change in the history of the universe. How does that not make you the most powerful person in the universe? It's not just about what power you had, it's about the power that you currently have. He is a ruler, he is a titan, he is a force to be reckoned with, he is a feared man, he's feared. There's power in being feared. Thanos is the most feared man in the universe, and he's even been able to conquer his own weaknesses, which is something that Thor has definitely fallen prey to multiple times. And Captain Marvel, first of all, I agree, we don't know enough about what she can do. There's a lot of potential there, but she's also coming into this fight, coming back to Earth. Who knows how long it's been for her? Who knows how she's going to integrate into this team? For all we know, there could be some weaknesses that Thanos can exploit inside of her. She certainly is influenced by an Infinity Stone. He has Infinity Stones in his possession. We don't know what kind of influence that could wield. Power is not just strength. Power is not just the damage you can do. Power is the will that you exert over others. Thanos has the strongest will. Thanos has the most power, and he's the most powerful being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Thank you, Dan. Christian, your final thoughts.
Fear is a power, but it's also a very irresponsible power, because you're not looking, because you can get irresponsible with it by, you don't know who else is out there. He doesn't know about Captain Marvel, so he can be lazy because he thinks that it's over. You've got to be looking around at all times, and he hasn't been, because what I think is more powerful than fear is respect, and I think that Captain Marvel has tons of respect from for the people that she's been working with thus far. We know that, but as far as is she battle tested? Do we know she's going to be able to do it? We know it's at least 30 years by the time we see her, or 20-something years by the time we see her, and she's off helping civilizations move to other planets. She is going to. We know that she's going to be fighting wars with the Skrulls. We know that she's going to be doing all of these different things. They said as much. She has to protect nations. Who do you want doing that? The most powerful person that is out in the galaxy, that is able to set forth a kind of responsibility. And then, like I said, I'm going to keep going back to it. You call someone not because you just happen to have their number on a page. You call them because you know they can fight the fight and that it's worth it, because it's your last call before you're going. You want to help your friends. You call the person that is the most powerful. It's also why she has that smirk on her face when Thor's axe comes flying by her, because she knows. It's also why your most powerful character looks at her, knows immediately, because he doesn't do this a lot with anybody. He looks and he goes, I like this one, because he knows she can hang and probably could whoop his ass too.
Thank you, Christian. Billy?
I'm not going to say that you guys didn't choose powerful characters, because you most certainly did. But my character, Thor, has what your characters has, but more of it. Thanos, he's a big dude. He kicked the Hulk's ass with no help. Guess who kicked Hulk's ass in a movie before but was stopped before he finished the job? Thor did it. You're saying that Thanos he's got the power of being this leader, of making the hard choices. Guess what? Thor was a leader, and he had to make the hard choice of blowing up his entire home to save his people and lead his people to safety. You talk about Captain Marvel has this ultimate power that she can use to stop a ship. I'm not doubting that she does, but what I'm saying is we've seen Thor have the same power. We see him storm onto the battlefield of Wakanda when all hope looks to be lost, and with one bolt of lightning, even the playing field, if not completely turn the tables. Your guys' characters are very strong, but they are not a god. Thor is powerful as a leader. He's powerful just as a creature. He's powerful with the tools that he has. The only one that can stop the full power of Thanos' entire might. And if he can stop the whole gauntlet, I'm sure he can stop someone who has 1/6 of that gauntlet. Thor is a god. He is the most powerful.
Time. All right. Wow, that was some damn good Marvel talk, you guys. That was fun to listen to.
Surprised no one chose Kevin Feige.
Yeah, right.
That is the true answer.
That's the true answer.
Or the Russo brothers. Ryan, what do we got in the fact zone?
All right, a couple things here. I don't think this necessarily should decide who had the better argument, but Kevin Feige did comment on this while promoting for Captain Marvel. It said in a soundbite interview, I got the full thing here, that Captain Marvel is, she's one of the most powerful characters in the comics and will be the most powerful character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's at least what they were hoping to establish when they were making or promoting Captain Marvel. Who knows the motivations, or if now that he's promoting Endgame, he would all of a sudden be like, actually, Thanos, or whoever they want to know. But that was the most recent thing that Feige has said about it. Christian said the stones are gone or burnt out. I don't know if that's 100% true. They definitely wanted to show that the gauntlet or something was damaged or not right after he did the snap, and you could still see it when he's sitting over the sun. But I don't think there's anything confirmed that there's actual damage to the stones
It
themselves.
must work enough to get him out of there because he uses it to get out.
Right, and so the Thanos had there was. Someone was saying that there in the chat that Thanos sends Loki to go get the Tesseract, so it's just one Infinity Stone, but the Mind Stone was in the scepter, and he was using it, and we can assume that I think that they understood that. So he did give Loki a Infinity Stone to then go get one. And then the last thing is that if you ask the Quinjet or Tony Stark, according in Thor Ragnarok, he would say that the Hulk is the strongest Avenger, and obviously that was very comedic when Thor found out that it wasn't him.
Gotcha. Ryan, thank you for enlightening us with some facts. This is a real good throwdown, you guys. I enjoyed listening, just as a fan, hearing all of your theories. But so it came down to two for me. KRISTIAN, I thought you had a strong argument, but I feel like they really did get you with the not enough game tape thing. Although, I love where you were coming from, and I think it may very well be established that she is as strong or stronger or more powerful than anyone in the universe. Also, I love that picture of just talking about Thanos' burnt out gauntlet and him sitting on the farm. I felt like it kind of reminded me of some kind of weird Viagra commercial. Yeah. I'm not what I used to be. But for me, it came down to Dan and Billy. And I felt like the obvious one was Thanos, but then Billy had just a strong tell of the tape for Thor and Thor as a leader. Thor has had to make hard choices, but at the end of the day, I had to go back with Dan because what happened? Where are we right now in the scheme of things? Even though Thor gave Thanos a run for the money at the end of Infinity War, Thanos still came out on top. He was able to enact his vision. So I got to go Dan. Ryan, where are your thoughts on this?
I think I'm going to go Dan as well. I think while there was a lot of different jabs going to try to discount each of the three choices, I think still at the opening and closing arguments, Dan to me had the best definition of power and all the different ways that he shows it. And so I thought Dan had the best argument.
Right on. Dan gets the point. Danielle, can you tell us where the poll's at?
All right. Well, so with 45% of the vote, we did have Thanos, 36% for Thor, Captain Marvel with 18%. Some of the other names that were thrown out, Scarlet Witch, Hela, Doctor Strange, Dormammu, and Goose the Cat, and Stan Lee by a lot of people.
Oh, hell yeah. Good call on Stan. If anyone said Stan Lee, I don't know, that would be hard to
it's tough.
Oh, Lee versus Feige. Oh, that's a whole nother conversation.
It's not fair for one person
Right.
to Stan Lee.
against
Prove me wrong.
You're the reason Stan Lee isn't.
Captain Marvel had one movie. Thanos only had one movie. Damn it.
Yep. All right. Good stuff. So Dan takes the lead 1-0 KRISTIAN and Billy looking to get on the board. Here is question number 2. Okay, speaking of Thor, Taika Waititi will direct the pilot of Apple's new Time Bandits series. By the way, if you've not seen Time Bandits, Terry Gilliam, it is one of my favorite movies of my youth. Such a fun romp, a time-traveling good time. Okay, so new Time Bandits series coming from Taika Waititi. What 80s movie would you most want to see Taika Waititi reimagine? What 80s movie would you most want to see Taika Waititi reimagine? And it's question number 2. We're going to start with player number 2, KRISTIAN.
All right, for me, this is an easy one because it's something that I've been very passionate about. It's a movie that I've wanted to see for a long time, but it needs the right director and the right tone, and that's Flash Gordon. I think that Flash Gordon was a movie in the 80s that tried to capitalize off of the Star Wars fame, and I love the Flash Gordon of the 80s, but it's incredibly cheesy, and it falls apart as soon as it begins, although I still love it. I think what Taika could do with this is he could add the amount of humor, but infused with a nice fantasy sci-fi film that we can see. Because what I want to see him do is start the beginning of a new trilogy, a new saga, a new series of films. I don't want to see something that has already been connected to other films or something that I know another director has made and done successfully, because this is a property that is screaming to be remade because of George Lucas wanted to make Flash Gordon. But he couldn't get the rights for it. He couldn't do it, so he made Star Wars, and thank God he couldn't get the rights for it. But if we can get the rights to Taika Waititi, let's see him do it, because we also know that he can play in that world. He's directing an episode of The Mandalorian. And he knows that world. We saw what he did in Thor Ragnarok, which was a great space adventure. And I think that to have him bring together these new planets to bring forth a villain like Ming the Merciless, it could be really incredible. And again, we know that he can pull in very serious moments. We know that he can do the humor, but we also know that he can paint the picture of another galaxy. And I think Flash Gordon is perfect for him.
All right, Christian with Flash. Okay, sorry I had to do that. Billy, what do you got?
So I'm going to choose the chronological start of the Indiana Jones series, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I think it's interesting that Disney has acquired the Indiana Jones brand and they've kind of sat on it, and I think it's because they're not 100% sure what do you do with that. And I think with Temple of Doom, when you look at that original trilogy, it sticks out like a sore thumb a little bit. Spielberg and Lucas have both said it's kind of not their favorite. They were both in dark places at the time. There's some stuff that definitely kind of is questionable today. There's like a little bit of like gross out humor it doesn't work, and the short round thing is weird, and Willie Scott's terrible. But I think if you take someone like, if you tell me I'm making a new Indiana Jones, you're like, ugh, I don't know. And you say, but Taika Waititi's directing it, you go, now I'm listening. And I think that he could really capture like he did in Thor Ragnarok, the humor of an action hero when he's not necessarily always winning, showing the human side of it, which is why we love Indiana Jones.
Billy, thank you. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Around the horn of Dan.
Yeah, I went with a choice. It's not a movie that I necessarily have a problem with. It's just something that I would like to see him, as he seems to be doing in the era of Time Bandits, which is a movie that has a great cult following, is reimagine. And it's a movie that I rewatched recently, and that's Beetlejuice. I love Beetlejuice. I love the Tim Burton Beetlejuice. Michael Keaton is great. There's so much that's great about this movie. But watching it again, I was looking at it, and I was saying, I wish that we could approach it, not Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian and all these dumb sequels that have come up over the years, but there's aspects of the film that aren't really explored that I would love to see in the hands of a new director. Specifically the fact that most of Beetlejuice takes place in the house with Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis and the new family, Catherine O'Hara, and it's really funny. And then for maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the film, you see this other side of the afterlife, and it's like this world of like drudgery and sand monsters, and I've always wondered like what exactly is going on there, because you're there for a few scenes and then you go back to the house and you see what's going on Earth. I want to see the world of Beetlejuice through Taika Waititi's lens, but I want to see more of the other side. I want to see more of where do these bioexorcists and ghosts live? The ridiculousness of the fact that you work an office job, but you're also a skeleton, or like a guy who's half cut in half. And I think that you have a lot of room for some real absurdist humor in there, and that's what Taika Waititi does. He does absurdist humor really well. He has talked about, I think you don't have to completely refute what Tim Burton did and say like, well, it's gonna look all CG and stuff. Taika Waititi has shown a lot of interest in things like stop motion animation and really innovative and interesting ways of storytelling. And I think that it's not just another shot at a movie that I don't like. I think it's a real reimagining of the universe in the sense that we are taking a base of what we know and saying, let's see more of that. Let me expound on that and see more of that world. In a way that's not sort of trying to wipe away something in the past, but really add to what is already there.
All right, 3 real different choices. Fight it out, guys.
Well, I think Jumanji and Halloween has proven that it's. I think it's a little better to, instead, if you have something pretty solid, instead of remaking the solid one, to continue on to lore and maybe retcon the ones that didn't work, right? Both Beetlejuice worked, and Beetlejuice, the first one, it's a Tim Burton imagination film. It is clearly Tim Burton's vision. I would love to see his version of the sequels. I think everything you're saying about the death after that, yes, but I liked what happened to Lydia. I liked the way everything that they did with the music and with Michael Keaton. You'd have to retcon Michael Keaton's whole thing up top. You could bring him back. It's possible, but I think that what you do with that is a sequel. Now, Indiana Jones, the problem that you run into there, because I would also love to see his version of Indiana Jones, the problem is you run into that Han Solo situation all over again, and it's like you've got to recast Indiana Jones as the young version, because you could do a sequel if you wanted to and either have Harrison Ford back in it, because I'd like to see his version of Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford now. But if you go back and you do that, then you got to recast him. Then you got to find the right one. Then you get into that whole Ehrenreich thing again. And if that happens, then you sink another property.
But I reject the premise that was like the thing that sunk Solo.
No, it hurt, but it hurt.
I think that there's a lot of factors that made Solo what it is. But I think, had someone like a Taika Waititi maybe jumped on Solo, that would have, like, the Taika Waititi brand itself, I think, elevates the premise or the project. And I think with Indiana Jones, like, we've pretty much run up the clock on Harrison Ford. So I think you have to reimagine it. And I think there are elements of Temple of Doom that are really great, but they don't really work. I think the short round thing is a little strange to me, that Indy, like, kind of has this, like, 6-year-old kid. But imagine if, like, we reimagine a little bit and Taika Waititi is playing almost like a Korg-like character that's a sidekick, someone who's a little bit more relatable, someone that brings the comedy, that can bring the humorous elements, because the best parts of Indiana Jones movies are the parts where Indiana Jones, I don't know, I'm just making this up as I go along, which was very much the tone that we saw him do with Thor Ragnarok, and that's what gives me confidence that he could do that with Indiana Jones.
But this sounds like a complete franchise reboot. It's not taking Temple of Doom and saying, like, this movie specifically, I want to reimagine this movie. You're basically saying, like, Indiana Jones is done and Taika Waititi would be good to lead the new franchise, and that's fine, but it doesn't really have much to do with Temple of Doom. And yes, it is dark. It's very dark, and it's very different from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's very different from Last Crusade, and that was the last Indiana Jones movie that was ever made, just those three. And so what I love about Temple of Doom, when I sit down to watch Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade are both very similar in tone. They're both Nazi movies, World War II. They share a lot of DNA. I like that Temple of Doom is in the middle. I like that the tone is different. I like that it's not 3 movies that are exactly the same. I know that Spielberg and Lucas have said that they think maybe that they went too dark, and that's their right as artists. But my right as somebody who likes to watch the trilogy is I've always liked the fact that you have this movie in the middle, or if you want to watch it first.
But here's the thing that Indiana Jones has over yours, too. Really, no one is clamoring for, like, we need to get Beetlejuice up and running again. No one is asking for Flash Gordon up and running again.
Oh, that's not true,
but everyone
actually.
wants another Indiana Jones, but we're not quite sure how to do it. We're not quite sure what we want out of an Indiana Jones. The minute you say Taika Waititi is going to do his take on an Indiana Jones movie, I guarantee you that's when fans get back on board.
You just made my point. You just made my point there, though.
Waititi.
But you just made my point as far as the second you say Taika Waititi is. The second you say that, because of what he's done so far, people go, wait, what? I would much rather him do something that you said that maybe not all people are looking for, because the second he says Flash Gordon, well, what was Flash Gordon? And then the media comes out and they go, it was the thing that inspired Star Wars. And it is him going to now be able to build a lot more. He doesn't have to worry about fans going, well, who are you going to cast as Indiana Jones? You can give a nice juicy new role.
But we already saw him flex those muscles with Thor Ragnarok.
No, Thor's been already established.
But here's
Thor was
the
already
thing, too.
established.
We already tried to reboot Flash Gordon as a TV series and make him edgy and
crappy
cool.
sci-fi.
No one gives a crap about Flash Gordon.
It wasn't Taika Waititi doing it.
The IP is worthless.
That person probably isn't even working anymore that did that.
There's no Flash Gordon problem to solve.
Flash Gordon was made at a time where Star Wars had just come out a few years earlier. The Star Trek franchise cinematically was very young. You did not have the overload of sci-fi like you do right now. You mean, as you said, he's already done Thor Ragnarok. The name of our honest trailer name for Thor Ragnarok was Flash Thornton, because that's essentially, that was his Flash Gordon movie. It was very much the same tone. It was set in space. You have the same kind of crazy ruler, the Emperor Jeff Goldblum. For me, that would be diminishing returns. That would, in a way, be the least interesting thing Taika Waititi could do, because I've seen him do crazy space comedy already and crazy visuals, and it would always be compared to Thor Ragnarok.
No, that's taking away from what he does, because that's pigeonholing him, going, he can't do more than what he does. What he has done beautifully in all of his stuff, whether it's television, whatever it might be, he is able to set a new tone to show you, oh, wait a minute, he did that was a drama. Oh, wait a minute, he did that was science fiction. That was fantasy. That was a horror. He's able to do it all, and because it's not, Flash Gordon is not just a goofy comedy like Thor. You would be able to tell Thor, just because it's in space, I think that's ignorant, to be honest with you, because I think what you can do, a space fantasy, a space opera, it would be his space opera, and we're going to see him play in that. I already said that with Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. But Flash Gordon, it did come. That movie, by the way, was done. The first one was done like in the 30s, but the 80s one didn't know how to do it the same way you're talking about. They couldn't crack the code in the 80s, and they couldn't crack the code in the television because I don't believe they had the right people with the right vision. This is a guy who has proven time and time again he has the right vision, he is a great writer, and he can set up an entire franchise. This movie, the same way I believe that Masters of the Universe can be a franchise, this could be a franchise, and Taika Waititi should be the guy that's leading it.
I also want to talk, because we haven't talked about Beetlejuice a lot,
Sure.
so let me just get my thoughts on that. I'm with you where I feel like 50% of that movie is the performances and 50% is the Burton vision.
Right.
And I think if you take the Burton vision out of it, I don't know if Beetlejuice really works that well. I think that there's a reason why we haven't seen another Beetlejuice since that one, is because I feel like that's pretty self-contained. That is a moment of time. That is a Tim Burton stamp. That is one of his pieces, and it's left there. Maybe there are other concepts to expand upon, but if you're talking about a reimagining, I don't think that it would have worked had it not been for that crazy vision of Tim Burton.
This is a the whole thing is a reimagining.
But
And I think I'm the only one that's
saying.
actually pitched a reimagining of any of this.
I literally pitched how I would do a reimagining
Indiana
of like
Jones
a short
franchise,
round.
but
Flash Gordon's reimagining from an
I'm
80s
reimagining
shock fest.
a story. The whole point of Temple of Doom is what could I do to make Temple of Doom current? What could I do to update it? What could I do to fix some of the things? I think you take out the element of the little kid, and I said you replace it with a more comedic Taika Waititi. I think you replace Willie Scott instead of being this terrible damsel that is just nails on a chalkboard. I think you make her a little bit smarter. I think you make her a little bit more edgy, like a Margot Robbie. I think that you update some of the humor in there that doesn't work anymore. I think you take the concepts of the temple, and I think you take some of the elements, but I think you update it for today's audiences and refresh Indiana Jones, because you're sitting on a property that's worth billions and you're not doing anything
But why
with
take
it.
all that time and money to take an existing movie and recast everything, recast the three lead
plus they're
roles, and
already
also
doing-
change a bit of the humor, and also just make a new Indiana Jones
Let's
movie.
shift
Why do you
gears
have
to final
reimagine
thoughts.
it?
That was the question. That was the question. I couldn't just say Indiana Jones.
Go ahead and give
All
us
right.
your final thoughts, please.
Final thoughts, and once again, they're already doing an Indiana Jones sequel. They're already working on that. So to go back and reboot Temple of Doom right now would seem kind of counterproductive to the overall mission of what they're trying to do. Just kind of reiterating my thoughts with Tim Burton, and agreeing with what Billy said too, is that Tim Burton, when you look at that particular, there are movies that when you look at something, you know who directed it, you know why, and that is what Beetlejuice was for Tim Burton. And I think that, yeah, you could do it for Taika he could make it work, but why would he want to? Why couldn't he take something like a Flash Gordon, to where what you were talking about reimagining? You take some of the whole. It starts off as an alien invasion movie on Earth, and it's terrifying. It could be, and he's shown he could be terrifying. You could do a War of the Worlds type thing, and you don't have to make it some cheesy thing where the guy's the New York Jets quarterback. He's somebody else. He's someone that runs into Dale. They run into Zarkov. They get into the spaceship, and they find themselves on this other planet. And Ming the Merciless is not Jeff Goldblum by any stretch of the imagination. He's more so Palpatine than anything else. And if you see what he's able to do, and you see the destruction that this Emperor has caused, you could really do something amazing and terrifying, and bring forward one of the best villains of all time. And I think Taika's the guy that can do it. And I don't think there's ever a time. And as a Star Trek fan, I'm shocked that you said that there's too much science fiction. I think that science fiction is never too much. I think there's so much more opportunity for science fiction fantasy, and I think there's not enough good science fiction fantasy. And when you have a guy that did Thor Ragnarok, to say, well, he's already done that, he shouldn't do another one, that's silly. You have a guy that has just done and shown that he can do this and give us great science fiction fantasy. He doesn't have to do the same movie. He can do something completely different. Let him do it, and let him do it with a property that inspired Star Wars.
Thank you, Christian. Billy.
Yeah, just to reiterate my point, the question was, what film from the 80s would you want to reimagine? I would have loved to have said just Indiana Jones as a blanket statement, but I couldn't. So I chose the movie that I think that you could actually rework now. And again, we're talking reimagining. We're not talking, Gus Van Sant's shot-for-shot Psycho here. I'm talking taking the DNA of what that movie was, the sore thumb in that trilogy, and using it as a launch pad. You update the characters. You update some of the humor. You update some of the characters, and then you take a franchise that people are already love. They're already clamoring for it, but they don't know what they should do with it next. You're sitting on a dynamite of just box office, and then the minute you say Taika Waititi's going to reimagine Indiana Jones for a new generation, the launch pad's there. I think with Beetlejuice, I think again, 50% of that is Tim Burton. I think if you strip Burton from the Beetlejuice, it's not going to feel like Beetlejuice anymore. And I get it. I get that's the point of like a reimagining. But I think that actually would just shine a light on why the first Beetlejuice worked, because 50% of it was from the imagination of a kid that wasn't hugged enough when he was a child. I think with Flash Gordon, I think we've tried to do Flash Gordon a couple of different ways. I don't think that Flash Gordon as an IP is going to move the needle. I've already seen Taika Waititi shoot his load about what he would do in a space opera situation with a hero, with a big strong hero like a Flash Gordon. I've seen him flex that muscle. I want to see him flex another muscle for Disney with Indiana Jones.
Thanks, Billy. Dan.
The reason that Beetlejuice excites me as a reimagining is that it is truly that. It is adding Taika Waititi's imagination to something that already exists. I think that the arguments for both Flash Gordon and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom have more to do with wiping out the bad parts of something instead of adding imagination to the good parts of something. And that's what I want to do here with Beetlejuice. Yes, there's a lot of Tim Burton that's involved with Beetlejuice. But if you say we're going to take elements of that and you bring Taika Waititi's style to it, and you say, isn't that what a reimagining is somebody coming in and saying, like, here's a corner of the world. I'm going to add my style to this. I'm going to add to this mythology. I'm going to add some elements to this. Instead of just saying, like, I didn't like Flash Gordon, and so I am just going to go through. I don't think he's going to rip the heart out of Time Bandits for Apple. I think he's going to take a great foundation and bring himself to it and tell a new story. And just both of these pitches seem like, when I say too much sci-fi, I don't mean that too much sci-fi exists necessarily. It's just that in the 30 years since Flash Gordon came out, there have been so many sci-fi films, Star Wars films, Star Trek films, Thor Ragnarok. I know you don't like the comparison, but there are similarities that have drawn on the things that Flash Gordon was drawing from. I just don't think it's as original as it was 30, 35 years ago. And Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, like, I get what you're saying, but like, I know that you answered Temple of Doom to sort of pitch what you wanted to do, but like, what you pitched was more of like Taika Waititi's restarting the franchise, the entire Indiana Jones franchise, more so than reimagining Temple of Doom. And I think with a reimagined film, you want to leave some of what's there, and I think you get that with Beetlejuice.
Time. All right. Good throwdown. A lot of interesting thoughts. Ryan, take us to the fact zone.
All right. The only facts I could really see that I want to make sure we got out there is that they are developing an Indiana Jones 5. It keeps getting pushed back, but it has been greenlit. Last we've checked, as a release date is July 9th, 2021. That's from The Hollywood Reporter. And according to Deadline, there is a Flash Gordon reboot that at one point was going to have Matthew Vaughn direct. Now he's just producing with someone else writing and directing. So those two are currently in development, and it doesn't seem there's anything for Beetlejuice in the future currently concrete in development. That's all I could get facts-wise.
Gotcha. Please give us your thoughts on this round.
This was a really hard one. I kept trying to decide, and the closing arguments I think swayed me. I think the part of it, to me, was between Dan and Christian, and the part of it that got me to be like, not what would just be the most interesting reimagining, but the one I would want the most. The thing that like got me the most was the idea of Taika being able to really fully take over Flash Gordon and be able to do anything he wants and not be encumbered by the things that come from before it. So for that, I think Christian got the point for me.
Yeah, that's one for Christian. I actually saw it similarly. I thought Dan gave a good argument, and it makes sense that, Time Bandits, that's a beloved film. Beetlejuice, also a beloved film, but I don't know. I thought Christian was really hitting on something with we'd want to see a sequel, and Billy, I think, the importance of Tim Burton's vision there made that film, because Tim Burton's mind in the 80s was just an amazing playground, and that came from there. Billy, I thought you had some great points about Temple of Doom, but at the end of the day, this Flash Gordon, sometimes the thing that makes sense, even Thor is territory that Taika was in already. That's not the worst thing in the world, and I didn't really take that as a slight against it. I'm a little disappointed that you did not mention Ted. Because
I know. And Queen. Queen. Taika does good stuff with Queen.
Yeah, but I got to go with Christian and Flash Gordon as well. Danielle, what'd the poll say?
Oh, the polls agreed with 58% for Flash Gordon, 30% for Beetlejuice, 11% for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Other things that were mentioned, Tron, Goonies, a lot for He-Man, Big Trouble in Little China, Gremlins, Monster Mutt in the chat, I think, had one of my favorite answers with Earth Girls Are Easy. I love that movie, but I would love to see his version of it. And then someone said Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo, which, excuse me, that movie is already perfect, so there's nothing else what need be done to it.
Yeah, when you mentioned He-Man within your argument, I was like, oh, that's a great choice, actually.
I'm very passionate about the Masters of the Universe.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be ruined.
So we are tied, Dan with 1, Christian with 1. Billy looking to get on the board here.
I think I got this one.
All right.
I got this one.
This is question number 3. Here we go. Alamo Drafthouse is planning a quote-unquote slut-only screening for the new teen comedy Slut in a Good Way. So, what movie, we ask, should have an exclusive screening like this, and who should be the only people allowed to attend? All right. Who should be the only people allowed to attend the special screening of what movie? Question 3, start with player 3.
Hal, I'm a big guy. I am. It's the truth. And in Hollywood, they don't want to make movies about big people unless they're the joke, unless they're the butt of the joke. But one daring man in the 90s, Mr. Judd Apatow, wrote one of my favorite comedies of all time, 1995's Heavyweights. I want to see this movie with my people. I want an only overweight people's screening of Heavyweights because I know everyone in that theater, it's not awkward. You're not there with your skinny friend like, do I laugh at this? Is this mean? Because obviously the person I'm with is bigger than me. No, I am with my own. We are laughing with them. We are not laughing at them. We get some of the jokes that you don't get. Why am I so sweaty after I take a nap? It's a fat person thing. You skinny people don't get it. I want to be with my kind when I watch one of the greatest comedies of all time.
All right. Billy.
Yes.
Coming out guns blazing with Heavyweights. Dan.
My pick is not only a film screening, it is a social experiment, which I think is what's going to be the best part of it. I would love so much for there to be a screening where you find the social media people, the YouTube commenters, the 200 people in the world that hated The Last Jedi the most for across the spectrum of reasons. And the only people allowed into the screening of The Last Jedi are those people and Rian Johnson. It is a stop and start Q&A screening. We've seen Rian Johnson on social media. He does not back away from confrontation or people that don't like what he does. And I very much would like to see this screening going down with Rian Johnson at the front of the room and an open microphone in the aisle, ready to answer any question that anyone in the room has to ask him. I would pay $500 to sit in the back row and see what happens.
You're gonna need more than that to hire the police. That's gotta do the entire theater. But
Interesting, Christian.
I'm pretending that the purge is happening and that laws don't mean anything in my world. So I'm saying a screening of Inception, but everyone's on acid. I think that, to me, that is a movie that, again, you will look at that movie very differently. You probably will look at life very differently for the rest of your time on this planet. And I think that already, probably the argument that my two competitors here will say is that the movie already is on acid. And I think that partially that's true, but I don't know. There's something to me, I don't mind saying. And in college, I dabbled in a little bit of the psychedelics, and I think that I enjoyed touching trees. I can just imagine what watching a Nolan masterpiece with the Hans Zimmer score would feel like in a situation like that. So, sorry, kids, that's what this one's all about.
All right, fight it out, you guys.
Let me bring up the thing about the acid trip.
Please, we're probably on the same wavelength.
That would be an enjoyable experience for that one scene where they're in Paris and the world folds in on itself and you go, whoa.
The music, too.
The music too, sure. I would like to bring up that a large part of that movie is about how there's an evil person that can be literally anybody, and they're stalking you all the time, and they could be right behind you. That sounds like
But
a
here's the
bad
thing, too.
trip,
If
man.
you're talking about you're taking acid and wanting to touch trees, the last thing I need is for my guy next to me on acid thinking I'm the tree that he wants to touch.
That's
All
not how
you're
it
gonna
works.
do is someone next to me is having a bad trip. You think people are gonna sit in those seats?
This is why I like you guys, because I know you don't do drugs. That's not what happens on a trip. You're not going to be looking around like, that guy's going to get me, that guy's going to get me. You're going to be locked into that movie, that
Some
entire
Michael Caine
movie.
in a classroom and Leonardo
Here's the thing,
DiCaprio
like,
moping
I'm telling
around
you,
the
if I'm
spinning at the
warehouse.
top, you're going to be looking at that top for
Here's
a
the thing,
long
if
That's
time.
like 2 minutes of the movie.
Look, if I'm going
think?
to choose to take acid, which I'm not,
Smart.
I'm not going to take acid. But if I were to choose to do it, Inception it's too heady. I want something a little bit more fun. Like, give me the Animatrix. At least there's shit to get lost in. But Inception is kind of drab by design. The palette's drab. Everything's moving. I feel like I'm gonna have a bad trip. Now yours,
Yes.
to quote Luke Skywalker, this is not gonna go the way you think it is.
Right.
It's gonna go one of two ways.
Yes.
Whether these trolls are gonna be silent and it's just gonna be awkward and that's just not really fun for anybody. Or two, it's gonna be Inglourious Bastards and you lock the doors and you just set the place on fire, and it is a hate crime
It's
scene.
not going to be Inglourious Bastards. I promise you that right
What do you
now.
think? What do you think could happen in there? Because Ryan Johnson, even with 200 people, yes, he's good on Twitter. But when you have a bunch of 200 people scream, because I'm telling you, I as you know, I host Jedi Council, and I can see
Yes.
there are a lot of hateful people out there who do not. There are a lot of people who just outright don't like the movie, but there are a lot of
Yes.
people who hate it and hate him for it. And if you stuck the 200 most people that hated the most, that's you're putting him in a dangerous position.
You don't need to tell me about Last Jedi I hate, Christian. And you're also putting 200 people in a room on acid. So don't tell me about dangerous situations. But I think out of all, like, both of these are just people watching a movie. Yours is, Billy, I go to a lot of movies, and
Sure.
I also live in the United States. We're like 75% of the way there to your screening already. Just any normal screening, and I'm not the picture of health.
Bring it on, man. I'm saying at least my movie is a positive experience because if you've watched Heavyweights, it actually is one of the first movies that's like, accept yourself, love yourself, but also take some responsibility for yourself, which is a great message. And I think so we can all laugh together. It's a positive experience, but we're also getting something out of it. Like, at least my screening is something where
Legal.
A, legal, B, doesn't require millions of dollars of taxpayers' money for police to be there, and two,
Hospital bills.
it's something positive that the fans can unite for a movie that is becoming a cult classic. Really, like, a lot of people love Heavyweights. It doesn't get the love that it deserves, but you show it a screening with a bunch of my fat brethren and my sisters. I love it. I love it.
But
it's a good time.
But it's such a positive message.
Sure.
There's a lot of fat shaming out there. I just did it, and wouldn't you want to share that positive message to people that maybe need that
But
perspective?
that's not the message in the movie. Is ultimately, I don't know how recently you've seen Heavyweights, but it's more about you can't always change them, but you can change you. And I think that's an important message. And it's wrapped in one of the funniest Judd Apatow comedies that's out there. It's Ben Stiller doing the dodgeball character 1,000 times better before he would do it again 10 years later. My movie is an experience that I think would be great. Yours scares the shit out of me. Yours could either be the most boring 7 hours of my life, or it could be the most violent riot that I've ever been.
Mine isn't violent. Mine isn't violent. Where I go, I'm just, again, I say I'm looking at things just a little differently for those 2 hours inside of that Nolan movie for sure. I do think for your the one point I do think that's a positive message in the fact that, hey, I feel this way. This is how I am. Come enjoy the movie with me. But I also think that it's one of those things to where maybe, I don't know, a lot of people can enjoy that movie, that particular movie. And it's one thing when you have hateful people there. You just want those hateful people there. You just want the people there that are just tripping that one particular time. But to say, like, well, I'm big, so I don't want to be around anybody who's small and who's
That's not
skinny.
what I'm saying. I mean, you could say the same thing about the all-women screening of Wonder Woman. That doesn't mean that other people can't watch it and can't get something out of it, but this is a chance for the big people to just take a minute, sit with ourselves, laugh at some of the jokes that it's like we see ourselves in, not feel like we're being judged in that room, not feel like that it's uncomfortable because it's moments it's like, ooh, can I laugh at that? We're with each other. It's one screening, one night. I'm not saying other people shouldn't watch it. With yours, I think the movie's irrelevant. I think once you're on acid, you can have a fun time with anything that you watch.
That's not true. No way.
I disagree. I think that the acid.
You see Halloween, then you're going to be in trouble. I'll tell you that.
But I think the acid part negates the actual screening. Like, I don't feel like you need a screening of anything to kind of get the same effect that you have.
Yeah.
Yours,
I chose a very strange one because the problem is that by saying the effects of acid is that you start to you think a lot in ways that you never thought before. In that movie Inception, it's not you're not lost when you're sitting there on acid. You're locked into this movie and you start thinking and theorizing and doing a lot more stuff to where you will. So whether you're right or wrong, you're going to be convinced at the very end that whether or not you know how it definitively ends. That is a movie to me that is it's a masterpiece. I always said it's a masterpiece, and it is a movie that I don't think you necessarily. I'm of course kidding, and I'm okay bowing out of this one. The fact that no one should be doing drugs, but it's the fact that you sitting there tripping balls with the Nolan movie, with the Hans Zimmer music. I get to a fun time in college. These
are both screenings though, where the headline is people go into movie and like movie. I mean, there's these special event screenings should be just that, an event. And what's the interest there? What's the pull? What's the hook? Other than we're going to get a bunch of people that watch the movie and like the movie. Okay, that's fine. This is an actual. You can actually learn something. This is almost an experiment. No one's obviously there's not going to be a murder in the theater. No one's going to stand up and murder anyone.
But why would you want to encourage more of that type of behavior?
It's not. That's the thing, though. It's not encouraging the behavior. If anything, I think it's actually a reality check, either Rian Johnson or to the people out there saying, like, listen, here's this person that you've crusaded against now for over a year. You have unfettered access. You can ask him any question that you want, and I'm really onto what is going to happen. Are they going to
Billy, make your point, and let's go to final thoughts.
Okay. I think, Dan, I get where you're going for. I see the headline. I would probably run with it myself on SJU. But here's the thing. Am I going to buy a ticket to go to the personification of the YouTube comments section? No, I'm not. We know how toxic, how ugly that is. Ultimately, it would probably be like Geraldo going into Capone's tomb. You probably get nothing out of it, and it would be a fart in the wind, and it wouldn't matter because you're right. I think a lot of those people are all bark online, and then you get them all in a room, and it would be either really boring, stopping and starting. It wouldn't be this like massive cultural societal thing that I think you think it is. And if it was, that would be so irresponsible and so toxic that I would want nothing to do with that. With yours, I still think...
I'm out of this thing. You can go ahead and just argue against them.
All right. Tapping out there.
I didn't get to finish with that.
It's one less final thought we'll have to hear.
I think for heavyweights, I do think that I think people underestimate how much people really do love this movie. If you said that heavyweights was coming back for like a limited engagement and fat people's screening, come with your s'mores and your Camp Hope t-shirts, I think people would show up for it. It'd be something positive. It would be something where you could go and you could feel included in a group. I don't want to be included in that group, but I want to be included in this group, and I think it would be something good for everybody.
Thanks, Billy. Dan.
I feel like Bane. You say run from the YouTube section. I was born in the darkness, Billy. I was shaped by it. I am fascinated by it. And I think you say that, oh, well, it's going to be toxic, it's going to be whatever. I think it's also perhaps useful is, again, yes, you have people that have said these toxic things online. When I see stuff like that, when I read stuff like that, if it's directed toward me, if it's directed toward you, everyone in this room has had that stuff directed at them. How many times have we said that, like, if people would just understand that on the other side of this screen there is a person, that you're not just yelling at a void. Like when you speak to someone online with that kind of vitriol, that you are talking directly to a person. This is the chance to see that personified, to bring in the people that maybe need to be in that room to understand that lesson, to say that, like, okay, listen, you spent 3 months behind the keyboard saying these things to this guy. Now the guy's he's in front of you. He's willing to hear what you have to say and to address your concerns. And if you're not willing to look him in the eye and say what you've been saying online for the last 3 months, maybe that's an important lesson that they do need to learn. Maybe those are the people that you need, because they understand that when they call this person somebody on Twitter, or they threaten them, or they talk about something, and then you have to look them in the eye and you get the chance to ask them the same question, maybe they understand why, oh, this is how real life works. This isn't just an avatar.
The only problem with that...
You bowed out.
Yeah, time. All right. Ryan, where are we in the fact zone?
Not a lot of facts thrown around in this one.
I got one fact for you. It was Al Capone's vault, not Al Capone's tomb.
Oh, sweet. Okay, that's the only other one I had is I did ask around to everyone Christian knew growing up to confirm if he's dabbled in psychedelics. That's still unconfirmed.
Gotcha.
And there were a lot of thrown around on how people are on acid. It's hard to check a fact on that one, but if they're anything like my roommate, they mostly just ask you to not leave.
Right on. Ryan, thank you for basically giving us nothing.
Thank you.
All right, but I appreciate your quips. Christian, you had my vote, but then you... No, I'm kidding. But there is such a thing as a bad trip. Bad trips are a very real thing. That could be a nightmare experience.
I misread the question.
But it'd be fun to get high and watch Inception. Between these two, I thought Billy really nailed it with as far as like Dan, you created, like you said it yourself, it was an interesting social experiment. But the personification of the YouTube comment section, is that going to be a good thing? Is it going to be a bad thing? Oh, I don't know. It's kind of making my mind explode. Yes, the vitriol and the anger is out of bounds so often. But, I mean, I don't know. It makes my head spin a little bit. But Billy's, it was just a feel-good screening with your people. And I thought you defended it so well when you said, just like the Wonder Woman screening, doesn't mean the movie's not for them, but it's celebrating it with people who can relate on that level, whatever the movie is. So, yeah, Billy gets my point. Ryan?
Yeah, I felt a similar way with that one. I think the thing with Dan, I thought you did a good job, like, saying how it would be useful and cathartic for the people in that room, but to me it still feels like the most interesting thing about that screening would be to the people who weren't at that screening or the people who learned something from there, whereas I think what Billy is saying is that it has the most effect and for the people actually at that screening, which I feel like fits the spirit of an exclusive screening that only those people can attend.
Billy Biz gets the point. Danielle, what'd the internet say about acid and some such?
Well, the internet has a lot to say about acid. I'm glad that we're not the cops. I can't guarantee that we aren't.
Yeah, our fans are
This
chill.
has been a 6-year sting operation. All going down.
Yeah. Screen Junkies is a bunch of narcs.
We put the name Junkies right in the title. And y'all didn't know.
Acid junkies.
So 57% for Heavyweights, 28% for Star Wars: The Last Jedi, 13% for Inception.
13% is pretty big.
Yeah, go check out the Movie Fights Live hashtag on this. There's so many good ones. I'm picking out like one, but I could pick out a million, and a lot of really good ones in the chat as well. One was Corin_W said, if I had my way, it would be Avengers Endgame, just me.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah.
Good snap.
Can you imagine?
It sounds better than it is. You don't want to watch it alone.
Yeah,
That's your Thanos.
one person with
That's
me.
your Thanos.
Yeah. It's fun to watch a movie on an afternoon alone sometimes,
but not the first time
but
without
that
the
crowd,
crowd. Unless
thank
they
you,
suck.
Danielle. So this is a great moment in sports. We are tied 1-1. So we are going to the tiebreaker. This will decide the two combatants that head to the speed round, and the tiebreaker works thusly. It's very similar to the speed round. So I'm going to ask the question. Shout out your answer as soon as you got it, and then once we have everyone's answers, we'll go in that order that you first answered, and we'll hear you elaborate for 20 seconds. Then we'll go back around for a 10-second rebuttal. Then Danielle, Ryan, and myself will decide who does not move on to the speed round. Gentlemen, let's do it. Tiebreaker question. The Mustang, a movie about a convict who bonds with a horse, opens this weekend. What's the best movie about a horse?
Seabiscuit.
You got Seabiscuit?
Best movie about a horse.
I can think of movies with horses in them.
Best movie about a horse.
I'm thinking
Yeah, I'm.
about horse movies. Secretariat. That was a movie. Yeah, there was this in the 70s, I think, right? The Secretariat. There's a Secretariat movie.
It came out after. It came out recently.
Secretariat.
Yeah.
Secretariat?
Man, I'm gonna be DQ'd by my lack of horse knowledge. I guess I'll have to go Black Stallion because that's the only thing I heard at this table.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yep.
All right. So we had Seabiscuit from Christian, Secretariat from Dan, Black Stallion from Billy. Christian, 20 seconds begin when you speak.
Well, I initially thought of Secretariat, but that was a horse that just kept winning, and the movie was about a horse that just kept winning, and there's no real story about a horse that just keeps winning. Seabiscuit was Rocky. Seabiscuit was a smaller horse, led by Tobey Maguire, who was a smaller guy who, in the Depression, had to fight back from this. Just it's over. You're done in the Depression. You're not going anywhere, and he came back in Underdog Story.
Dan.
I think there's a lot more to Secretariat's story than a horse that just kept winning, because it didn't come out a winner. This is a horse that made history, and even if you don't like the fact that they won a lot, history is history. It's like saying, like, oh, well, why watch a movie about the moon landing? They landed on the moon. We all know that. No, it's about the journey there. It's about the accomplishment. It's about the achievement, and it's about the fact that it captured the national imagination and turned people on to the sport of horse racing in a way that hadn't been done in decades.
Billy.
Both of your movies, I'm assuming, are about horse racing, which I think is cruel and terrible, and we shouldn't do that. Mine is the Black Stallion. I'm worshiping the majesticness of my horse. My horse, this is about power, about beauty. The name is Black Stallion. Yours is Tobey Maguire, and he's a creep. Yours, I thought, was a Maggie Gyllenhaal movie. It doesn't matter because
Yeah.
10-second rebuttals, Christian.
You've never seen that movie. As far as my movie was about a horse that wasn't supposed to win that did. Your movie was one. Yes, we wanted to see the story, but you didn't know my horse was going to win.
Dan.
But my horse is more than just a story. It's about a nation who follow this horse's performance. The Black Stallion is National Velvet. There's all a kid in their horse movies. There's so many of them. There's only one Secretariat, and there's only one story of this horse, and it's in this movie.
Billy.
kids love horses. They can relate to horses. Kids can't relate to your stories. They're never going to be horse racers. But a kid and his horse, it's an age-old story that I probably would have watched when I was in kindergarten and really got a lot of
Kids love horses.
Well done. Good try.
No one said War Horse, also a solid film. Danielle, what do you got? What do you got on
in the
this?
speed round to think.
So, yeah, all very compelling horse arguments. But I have to go with the one where it's very obvious that the person had not seen their movie.
I tried.
I know
I
you tried
tried.
so hard. You really did. But there is horse racing in Blackstone.
Is there shit? I have no idea what it's
I'm
about.
sorry. I love you, Billy. You're amazing. I will see you at the fat people screening. Unfortunately,
We'll Percocise together.
That's one for Billy. I sadly have to agree, but your passion almost got it across the line, but they edged you out. Win place show. Sorry, Billy, you're not moving on to the speed round, but well fought throughout.
I came today with revenge in my eye, and I didn't have my head in the game. So this is what you get. This is what you get.
I was going to wear a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shirt. I couldn't find one. I couldn't find one.
Just to
threw it out along. I threw it out that day.
You valiantly fought, but Christian and Dan are moving on to the speed round. That did not count for a point. We are locked up 1-1. First person to 4 will take the point. Got that pen. There we go.
That was good.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Speed round works the same as the tie break. I'll ask the question, call out your answers, and then 20-second, 10-second, 10-second rebuttals.
Horse movies?
Yes.
All horse
It is
speed round.
all horse themed.
Screw Joe Starr. That was such a Joe Starr. She's like, guys, I could think of 40 of them. F you, Joe
I would have
Starr.
thought it was a long question. I have to settle this afterwards. Is that a Joe question or is it a
That's a
long
Joe question.
And
Joe question.
please, what horse movies did we leave out? Hashtag Movie Fights Live. All right, here we go. Question 1 of the speed round. We are tied 1-1. Lori Loughlin has been dropped by Hallmark. What actress, because of this whole college scandal, what actress should step up and star in all the original Hallmark movies now? The Hallmark originals.
It's good.
Who should step into the Loughlin void?
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
JLH.
Dame Helen Mirren.
Dame Helen Mirren.
Yes.
All right. We heard Christian first. 20 seconds begin when you speak.
I'm going first. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer Love Hewitt. Obviously, we know that she was America's sweetheart as she was a teenager coming up. She just encapsulated everything about you. You loved her, so why not step into these Hallmark now? She has children. She's a mom. She has shown that she's versatile and she is squeaky clean. There is no scandal with Jennifer Love Hewitt. She's perfect for these roles. Plus, she's not in a lot of movies. Put her in these movies.
Dan.
Jennifer Love Hewitt fits into the same mold, though. You have Lacey Chabert, Lori Loughlin, people that were on TV in the 80s and 90s, and they go on to do Hallmark movies. I want to see what Dame Helen Mirren brings to the bakery owner who falls in love with the prince, and the seamstress who falls in love with the prince, and the illustrator who falls in love with the prince, and all of the other falls in love with the prince Hallmark movies. Give it a little prestige. Come on, they're cookie cutter. They're a laughing stock. Give it some
If you were an executive at Hallmark, I would fire you because Mirren would cost way too much money. Jennifer Love Hewitt is attainable. Go and get her. And people like comfortability. They don't like change. Go and get JLH.
Go and get JLH and blend in all of the rest of them. Everyone's starting a streaming service nowadays. You got to differentiate yourself. And what better way to elevate the Hallmark movies into must-see status than by getting one of the most legendary actors of our time, Dame Helen Mirren. And I'd love to see her open.
All right, the Dame versus JLH. Ryan.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go down on that first one. I felt like most of the things against Helen that Kristian was trying to put out there didn't really hold with me, and I think that one was the clearest image of like what would be the most exciting thing for Lifetime. So I'm going to go down on this one.
I got to disagree with you. I feel like it was too much of a shock to the system. People don't like change. I agree with Kristian. You want to just plop someone in to make the goddamn same Hallmark movies that someone's eating and eating scoops of ice cream on a Saturday night to get away their sorrows. So yeah, I'm going Kristian on that. Danielle?
All right, we're breaking the tie. You know, and again, these are completely wildly different answers, both very great. You're right, JLH, she is very squeaky clean. She is America's sweetheart, and she was at one time. I don't think that saying that someone is attainable is necessarily a compliment. And I'm not going to lie, I've seen, because I think Jennifer Love Hewitt has done some of those movies. I would like to see Helen Mirren fall in love with a baker prince, or however it was that you phrased it. That sounded more exciting to me, especially when talking about streaming. There are already a bunch of Prince movies on Netflix, so give me some of that good Helen Mirren. Going with Dan.
All right, Dan gets the point. Dan takes a 2-1 lead in the speed round.
My dad loves Lifetime movies.
What's that?
My dad loves Lifetime movies.
I love Lifetime
I think
movies.
there's a secret dad demo for those
There
movies.
is.
Yeah.
There definitely is.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Comment if you are part of that secret dad demo of Lifetime and Hallmark movies. Question number 2. Dan is up 2-1. In honor of Avengers Endgame, what's the best final movie in a franchise?
Return of the King.
Return of the King.
Return of the King. Creed 2.
We have Return of the King. We have Creed 2. Dan, you spoke first. 20 seconds to begin when you speak.
First of all, we don't know that Creed 2 is going to be the final movie in the Creed franchise. They could very easily go with Cur 3 Eid coming in 2022. But I think Lord of the Rings Return of the King had the weight of expectation, had the weight of wrapping up a 3-movie-long epic, and did it so well that it won Best Picture. It ended on a high note, and how many franchises can you say the final movie was the one that got the most acclaim, the most awards, the most adoration from fans? They didn't screw it up, and usually movies on that...
Creed 2 didn't rap Creed; it rapped Rocky. It was the whole point of that. It was supposed to be how that fight damaged Rocky, how much it did to his marriage, his son, everything. And you saw it all come back, and it happened with the guy that he lost, and it was a redemption for Rocky. It wrapped up the entire Rocky story, not necessarily just Creed, but the Rocky story itself. Creed 2 wrapped up Rocky, the entire franchise, and I thought did it brilliantly.
I still think we're TBD on that. It wasn't called Rocky 9. It was called Creed 2. The Creed franchise may continue. And how many times have we seen a franchise retire a character only to bring him back out for the next one? Lord of the Rings wrapped up the trilogy and wrapped it up magnificently.
I mean, Lord of the Rings definitely followed the book, but I thought what the film was able to do was take a series of films, and like I said, it wrapped up the Rocky franchise. The question was as far as the franchise goes, it wrapped it up. Stallone had a big arc throughout this entire thing, had to do something with Creed, finished it.
Time. Okay. I thought Kristian made a really compelling argument for Creed 2, but Dan really just brought out that Oscar gold, and I felt like he painted that epic picture for Return of the King. I'm going with Dan and the Return of the King. Danielle?
Yeah, I do agree with they were both compelling, but I have to agree, I thought that Dan's Oscar argument was stronger, as well as saying we don't necessarily know, and it's a little pedantic, we don't necessarily know that this is going to be the last Creed, so I gotta go with Dan.
All right, Dan takes the point. Dan has a 3-1 lead. This is game point. Christian, you need this one to keep her going. Here we go. We got a trailer this week for Warner Brothers Animation's animated team-up, Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What character facing off against the Ninja Turtles would make the best movie?
Is it character or characters? Or both?
It is character, singular. What character?
Oh, okay.
Pass? Oh.
5, 4.
John Wick.
Ninja Turtles?
3.
RoboCop.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, look at that.
I will not be biased. Okay, we heard John Wick first. Dan, 20 seconds begin when you speak.
I think the ninja is what they don't really lean into in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles too much, so I'd love to see them actually have to use these powers of deception and escape against the Baba Yaga, who's practically a ninja himself. This one man who can take down a huge squad against these turtles that have to rely on deception to get away. A 4-on-1 with the nunchucks and swords. Just a 4-on-1 John Wick fight with the circle.
Yeah, it'd be fun to watch them fight against John Wick, sure, but I see them do karate all the time. How are they going to battle RoboCop coming out with a bunch of guns, with his guns and his the equipment that he has, the technology? How are they going to fight that? They use their head. They're smart. It'd be funny to see him get slapped in the face with a pizza and then he can't see out of his visor, and he's trying to figure it out. Then the rat kicks him in the nuts. It'd be good to watch. I'm done.
Rebuttal.
How do you fight RoboCop? 4 syllables. Donatello. He knows machines. That's what he does. He's big. He's slow. 3 of them are going to hold down RoboCop. Donatello's going to disable him, and that's the end of the fight. John Wick, you're going to get a great fight scene. They're going to be a cat and mouse and turtle the whole movie.
I just seen it. I've seen him do the karate. I don't want to see that anymore. I want to see how they're able to fight this technological terror, if you will. How are they going to do it? How are they going to fight him? What are they going to... The back and forth dialogue still will be amazing.
All right, Ryan, what do you got?
Oof, that one was a tough one. I swung back and forth. I think I'm going to go Christian on this one. I thought he made a good point with the action of that it would be interesting to see them face off against something more robotic instead of doing the karate, and he kind of also, made sure that we would still get the comedy and all that kind of stuff of messing with a more serious character. So I go Christian.
Right on. Let's go to the other half of Rye Dan Dirty. Danielle Radford.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with Ryan. I really liked him saying, "Shut up."
Okay.
Stop trying to terrify me with bells.
Will do.
So yeah, I agree with Ryan. You used up all my explaining.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, Christian, you are still in the game. It is 3-2. You need this one to tie. It's still game point, Mr. Murrell. Here we go.
Donatello does machines, by the way. I know that's going to... I know. Just be... I'm sorry.
Yeah, people could take that a certain way. Here it is, question 4 of the speed round. Noah Hawley's Doctor Doom project is in limbo right now. Mm-hmm. Who would you most want to see play Doctor Doom?
Michael Fassbender.
Christoph Waltz.
Okay, we got Fassbender. We got Waltz. Christian, we heard you first. 20 seconds begin when you speak.
Michael Fassbender has shown with his portrayal of Magneto that he can make villains complex. He can make you feel for them. The way that I wanted to feel for Anakin Skywalker, I felt for Magneto in those initial movies. I want to feel that for Doctor Doom. I want to see what's going to happen with Doctor Doom and how he's as much of the origin story with the Fantastic Four as the actual Fantastic Four are. And I think Michael Fassbender, an actor like that, has shown he can play a hero and has shown he can play a complex villain. And I'd like to see him do a little bit more.
To ask Fassbender to take on 2 huge villains in the same stable and Doctor Doom and Magneto, first, I think it's a little too samey. Secondly, Michael Fassbender does Tortured, but what I think you need to bring to Doctor Doom is something that Christoph Waltz can have, which is that he has that kind of European vibe, but he also can be both cartoonish and sinister at the same time. You saw that in Inglourious Bastards. He brings that energy so that he's over the top, but also...
your reason for him is my reason against him. I think he's too cartoony. I've seen him play villains so many different times that I can predict what he's going to do, how he's going to be. Everything that he's done in a Bond movie, he's done it before, and I've seen it. I want to see something more complex.
And I've seen Michael Fassbender play the evil big bad of the franchise. I want to see some of that Hans Landa energy where you love him, but you also hate him, and he brings that villainy to it. He's sinister and cartoonish and a villain. He could play all those parts.
Ooh, man, what a throwdown. Like, I was back and forth trading blows. This was, it's just like, this is like as much of a tie as I've ever seen in like a speed round question. Damn it, you guys. By the hair of his chinny chin chin, I gotta go Dan. Just by it, barely. Ryan.
Yeah, this was tough for me as well. It's going back and forth. I think KRISTIAN kind of invalidated what he said when he used the top of his argument, saying you've seen Michael Fassbender done this before, and then saying that you don't want Christoph because we've seen it before. I think that was a little bit of the edge where then Dan had the best image of how he would fit for a Doctor Doom character, about the cartoonishness and the evilness, and that's why I went with Dan as well.
Dan Murrell just won movie fights. KRISTIAN, well fought, furious comeback there, and man, that last question, it was just like, it made my head explode for a moment.
It was a good run, guys.
Yeah, hell yeah. Dan, well played. Please give some thoughts and shout outs and whatever you like.
I like to play the game. It's a fun game to play. I like just to do it, just to play it. Mm-hmm. People seem to get mad now when I win. I'm sorry. I don't know. I want people to enjoy the show.
Hey, death, taxes, and Dan Murrell winning a movie fights. But Dan, well fought and nicely done.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just like the way you parry and move in that speed round. It's fun to watch. Also fun to watch, KRISTIAN. You really brought it today, and it was great. And you also brought something else. Speaking of the Schmodown earlier.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Billy and Dan about beforehand. If I could show you guys a little bit about what we're doing on March 23rd. We are doing the free-for-all. It is 40 competitors. I showed a little teaser here, and I gave it to JT.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Movie Trivia Schmodown. 40 competitors going at it. Who's going to be the last person standing? 5 competitors will start at the table. People who have the lowest amount of points on the desk will be eliminated, and then new competitors will enter.
You never know who's coming down the ramp next.
You guys can be there to watch it all go down in downtown LA. Give it up for John Humphrey. Wow, Irwin has not missed head to head to figure out who is the ultimate champion here. This is something special.
Oh, how about it? Man, that really gets you going.
I'm excited
gets the juices flowing.
The schmodownlive.com. You can see it downtown LA. Please come and check it out. You might see him, you might not. You might see a bunch of different people. So come and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, free for all is great times, and to be there live, the energy in the room is off the charts. KRISTIAN, very cool. Congrats, thank you again for being here and great fights. Billy Biz, you had some great answers yourself, and I think you touched a lot of people out there with your third round. Tell us where we can find you and whatnot.
You can probably find me on my when I challenge for the All Horse Inner Geekdom title.
Yes,
good training.
The famed golden horseshoe.
The Schmodown horseshoe.
Oh yeah, that's great. And we'll get to the bottom of who came up with that question. Ryan, thank you so much for holding it down the Fact Zone. Awesome.
Did my best, and it'll be better next time, I promise.
There may not be a next time. No, that was great. That was excellent. Thank you, sir. And Danielle Radford, the other half of the classic combo, Rye Dan Dirty. I just can't stop saying that. Thank you for being just wonderful and delightful. Please tell them where they can find you.
Same places as usual. You can find me on Twitter at Danielle Radford. Oh, if any of y'all are going to WonderCon, I'm going to be on the Most Dangerous Women panel. Some of the info for that is on my Twitter, so come check it out.
Heck yeah. And I want to thank you for watching Movie Fights. I'm at Hal Rudnick on the Twitters and the Instagrams. Come check me out there, and I'll say a lot of stupid stuff about movies, TVs, and whatnots. And I want to plug a show real quick. This weekend, if you are in Los Angeles, come to the UCB Franklin Theater, the Upright Citizens Brigade, Saturday, March 16th at midnight for the Tournament of Nerds. It is going to be quite a throwdown, a pop culture roast battle, more or less. So that's always a good time. Thanks, everybody. Dan, well played. Everybody, great stuff. Billy, thank you. JTE, thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.